It's here in Jinja Town that I caught up with one of Uganda's historians, politician, now Rotarian and Pope Knight, Son Knight Henry Kyemba at his home in Jinja Town. Henry Kyemba was born in 1937 in Masasa, Jinja to Chief Sulaiman Chisache from the Nabeta family, a family known for political leadership, especially in politics since independence. Having attended several primary schools, he headed to Busoga College, Mweri for his secondary education before joining Makerere University, where he did a bachelor's in history.
In fact, I was one of the graduates that were handed their degrees by Milton Obote when he was Prime Minister.
In March 1962, Henry Kyemba graduated almost in time for independence.
Little did I know that the colonial head of civil service had other ideas. He appointed me assistant secretary in the Prime Minister's office.
He rose up the ranks working with the office of the Prime Minister as principal private secretary of the late President Milton Obote.
It is a very demanding job. You don't have any privacy.
In 1963, Kyemba was among the very few in Africa that participated in the organization of the African Union.
I was put on the expert committee for setting up the OAU headquarters, and I made several journeys to Addis Ababa.
A turning point in his life was 1971, when while in Singapore with President Milton Obote, Kyemba received the news of a coup by Idi Amin Dada.
It was not a complete surprise. The coup took place when we were on a flight from Singapore to Bombay. The first announcement was on the BBC when we were in flight.
He returned to the country, leaving Obote in exile, but still, Amin welcomed and returned him, appointing him later as a Minister for Health. Soon, the honeymoon was over.
But then we thought maybe this is an accident. We used to give Amin a lot of benefit of doubt until it became clear that we had a real problem on our hands.
Constantly in fear and unsure of what was to follow, and acting on advice from his mother, Kyemba fled into exile, but one of his brothers was not so lucky.
Finally clear at the time when the Archbishop General was killed, Rinayo Ryema was killed, Botho Fumbi was killed, and he was issuing statements saying the Minister of Health says this about this, and I said this is totally unacceptable.
To Henry Kyemba, being in exile was one of the worst experiences, as his thoughts always revolved around turning home. But even then, he still recalls some light moments, like meeting the Kabaka of Uganda, Ronald Mwenda Mutebi, with whom he is friends with to date. In 1979, Amin was overthrown. It was time to return home, and Kyemba steered clear of the civil service and politics, preferring private business instead.
I made every effort to restart my dairy farm. I was keeping Frisian cows.
But in the early 90s, he was persuaded to represent the people of Jinja West in Parliament for 3 terms. He went on to serve twice as minister in Museveni's government.
I became Minister of State for Agriculture and Animal Industry. 1994, I was appointed again by President Museveni to be Minister in charge of the President's office.
So why did Kyemba turn down the offer of standing again in 2001, even after several pleas?
Basically because my son, Idi Amin Dada, wanted to stand as a Member of Parliament for Jinja East. And I thought it would be wrong for my son to be member for Jinja East and for the father to be member for Jinja West. As if that was not enough, I had 2 other sons. One was aspiring against Honorable Chirunda Chive Jinja, another one against Bunya somewhere.
Kyemba now remains actively involved in religious affairs as a Pope Knight and a Rotarian, serving 1 point as a district governor.
I joined Rotary as a way of giving back to my country something.
During his free time, Henry Kyemba is actively involved in reading and writing. In fact, he is best remembered for his book, The State of Blood, which chronicles the mayhem under Idi Amin. Kyemba was married to Sarah Ndagre, who died last month, and together they had 4 children. So I then asked, what has been most challenging experience in his life?
Integrity, one would like to take for granted. Even in the family, who don't pay much regard to it.
And does he have any regrets in life?
Look and say, how will I be remembered? How will my name be remembered? Because all these are the things we have.
Kyemba sees himself as a public property and notes that in his old age, he would like to pass on knowledge. These are his words of wisdom.
Pray to God to guide you to render service to your country.
Maurice Ochol, NTV.